Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and welcome to the regular Attleboro School Committee meeting of Monday, November 3rd. This is your notice that this meeting is being electronically recorded. The first item on our agenda tonight is a facilities update to highlight some of the fantastic work that happened across the district this summer. And for that, I will turn it over to Director of Operations, Mark Furtado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You all probably know Jason Parento, who is our facilities director from our vendor, Sodexo. He's going to go over all the work we did this summer. We estimate that may have been the busiest summer we've ever had in the district in 25 plus years. We had Brennan completely shut down for the first time in my career here to kind of rehab the building overall. We did a lot of flooring work, replacing original installed floors, primarily from 1997-ish, some before that. And then some additional work that Jason will give you the details on. I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the story. We had some hairy moments. It was a lot of fun. And we're very grateful and proud to be able to make the conditions in which our students go to school every day better and make their learning environments better. So with that, I'll give it to Jason.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you for allowing me to be here this evening. I always enjoy an opportunity to talk a little bit about the great work that your facilities team is doing here in Attleboro, so I appreciate that. Especially this summer, as Mark said, we got quite a bit of work done over the course of the summer. Great opportunity at Brennan. Often that's such a busy building with summer school programs and other extracurricular activities that we almost never get a chance to go in there and really go through it like we did this year. So I'm going to start with this first photo, which is a picture of the Attleboro High School gym that for the first time we completely screened, repainted, and coated this past summer. A little nerve-wracking for us because the floor had never been touched, and it was a material that we weren't used to working with, but it's actually a great product. Consigli, as usual, picked the right product. It's a water-based product, allowed us to do the work while this was a very active summer school environment. There was no odor issues. There was nothing getting into the Abacus program or any of the other students that were in the building at the time. They didn't even know we were doing the work. Interestingly enough, we did paint the entire gym. So all of your lettering, your paint, all the whites and blues that you see was completely repainted. We had just a few spots that were a little thin. We thought, we're just going to touch them up, no big deal. As soon as we touched that white paint to the floor, everything else looked dull. It just wasn't working. So that led to us painting the entire gym. Hey, custodial, I feel like this is just one of those things that's always out there. Custodial work is, and a lot of times I sort of joke around, it's the offensive lineman of a school district. You never really know what's going on there until somebody misses a block, right? The summertime is when they really get to shine. You can see that we're cleaning inside of lockers, we're stripping and recoating floors. I wanted to highlight that photo of Tony there on the right on carpet extractor at the high school. We've got so much carpet here that you could never do it by hand. It would be nearly impossible. So we brought the folks in from Tenant, and they gave us a demo on this piece of equipment, and it's worked fantastically. It does a great job. Tony's able to handle all the upstairs corridors. I mean, we still have to do the perimeter and do some, the edging, but it's all done on a ride-on, and we're able to do that multiple times a year, believe it or not. Even though it's a great carpet, it's a great material, you still have to stay on top of it, or it will stain and, start to get beat up a little bit. The picture on the upper left-hand corner, I only put this in there because the grass looks so great, but it also highlights some of the work that we're doing on the exterior of the building. So we get later into the summer months and we've got the inside of the building ready. and we'll actually start cleaning some of the lower windows. And we've done that at the high school. We do it at Studley. Some buildings like Brennan and Wamsutta, you just can't do that because you've got screens on the exterior. But whenever we have extra time, we're going to do some exterior window cleaning. And in that lower right-hand corner, you can see where we're doing some of the perimeter cleaning. That's the second floor corridors here at the high school. But the whole program really works well together. So this is where the fun begins. This is some of the work that Mark talked about at Brennan. That upper left-hand corner is Coelho's cafeteria, believe it or not. That's an interesting situation with the floors in general at Coelho, but in particular the cafeteria there. In the early 2000s, at least we were told, we brought in multiple experts because floors at Coelho were giving us various degrees of problems. Sometimes they would delaminate, sometimes they weren't sticking, and it didn't matter if it was VCT, if it were LVT, or even just ceramic tile, which is what they have in the main entrance in some of the bathrooms. It turns out that a lot of companies like Armstrong, which is the product that was used here, were experimenting with low VOC and green mastics and adhesives in the early 2000s with varying degrees of success. So we've been sort of on the other end of, we haven't had a lot of luck with that, which is why after, less than 30 years, we're replacing an entire cafeteria floor. But it really came out tremendously well. It looks like it's amazing. You have to see. I've got the after pictures, don't worry, so they're coming up. You can see some carpet removal at Brennan, Wamsutta, and Studley. This upper right-hand photo is very interesting. Early on, and Dave, I bet you'd remember this, the idea in the late 90s was that we were going to have desktop computers. So we had these huge computer tables, right? And they had probably 6 or 8 of those in each room, and they were floor outlets because you had to plug them all in. There were no Chromebooks or anything like that. Well, fast forward to 2025, we're not using those outlets, but we're kicking them, and we're spilling things in them, and we're having all kinds of problems with them. So it just became an issue. So as part of getting the floors prepared for new carpet at Brennan and Wamsutta, we actually removed all of those floor outlets. And Brandon, who's our maintenance supervisor, school electrician, and Attleboro High grad, took that job on, which was no small task. We both sort of looked at each other in mid-August like, maybe we should have thought this through a little bit. The clock was ticking. But he was able to pull through, got that done with the help of some of our senior custodians, and of course, the maintenance staff. It's important to point out that we would have never gotten as much flooring done this summer if it wasn't for the senior custodians and the custodial staff in general taking on all of the heavy lifting. So Mark and I, our plan was to do as much carpet as we wanted to. We didn't want to pay someone prevailing wage to tear up old carpet and to move furniture. The custodial team took those tasks on, removed all of the carpeting. And when I say all of it, I mean every single carpet installed at Wamsutta's second floor, removed and replaced. Every classroom carpet at Brennan has been removed and recarpeted. So Brennan has brand new carpets throughout the entire building. Wamsutta, the entire top floor, 7 rooms at Studley, 5 rooms in the office suite at Willett, a tremendous amount of work, and 3 rooms at Briggs Corner School. All done by your custodial team. Guys did an amazing job. I don't know, what made it even more taxing was that we're working around painters, because while we were doing all this, we painted the entire top floor at Brennan, the entire top floor, common spaces and hallways at Brennan. We painted 8 bathrooms at Brennan and Wamsutta, renovated 4 of those bathrooms at Brennan. And so we're chasing, because part of the time we're emptying a classroom, putting furniture up against the bathroom walls, we're blocking things. So it was just constant motion, sort of coordinating the tradesmen and the custodial team and the carpet installation. Just an amazing amount of work. I can't remember, as Mark said, a summer where we were this busy. People were canceling vacations to make sure that we were ready on time. We had one guy, Andre at Brennan Middle, who's a senior custodian. He's been with us now. He started with Sodexo 20 years ago and went to work for the district about 16 years ago. He just kept working. There were 3 rooms we weren't planning on doing, but we had no choice because he pulled the carpet up. So we had okay, all right, let's take a break. We're gonna get these done, but that's it. Of course, in the case of Wamsutta, our plan will be this summer to move down to the first floor, to do more work at Studley. Willett, I'm happy to say, has been completely recarpeted. All of your classroom space and now your office space completely done. Mark and I sort of had a 5-year plan for air conditioning and flooring at Willett, and I think we beat it by a year. Right, maybe a little bit better. So, looks fantastic there too. What a difference. Not to sort of labor on about the carpet too much, but we realized that we were putting several hundred square feet of carpet back into a school, which in a lot of ways seems like, is that a great idea, right? Like, should we be looking at something a little bit more long-term, like a laminate flooring or some type of VCT? But we met up with the guys who did the carpeting in this building, Mannington. And we brought them in, and we met with Mohawk and some other manufacturers, but Mannington came in and introduced us to what they call a 6/6 nylon carpet. Came in, he kind of put on a nice little show for us. He dipped a piece of carpet in cherry Kool-Aid and was able to clean it and all this other stuff. Anyway, it's got a 20-year warranty against staining. If it stains and we can't get it clean, they come in, replace the carpet, labor and material, no charge to the district. So it was a win-win. And we didn't lose any of sort of that sound dampening that you get from carpets. In areas where we've done that in the past, we did some of that at Brennan in 2006, you can tell the difference. The rooms tend to be a little bit noisier. So it made a difference. It looks great. We've heard nothing but rave reviews from staff and students alike, so it came out really nice. You can see here, we replaced the ceiling at Briggs Corner School, actually put in new light fixtures. We've also got, so that weird picture, kind of second to the last photo on the bottom, that is the, that's here, I was gonna say VCT, at CTE. That's your cosmetology program. We learned that as the program grew, we didn't have enough electricity in the space. And just like at home, you run too many hair dryers, you trip a breaker. It wasn't happening so often that it became a problem, but it was happening often enough that we knew adding more than a dozen additional workstations, which we also did this summer, which meant another 14 or 15 hair dryers, which was definitely going to create a problem. So Brandon took on the task of pulling about 1,000 feet of wire, installing 14 new circuits, and upgrading the entire electrical infrastructure in cosmetology. It took him about 50 or 60 labor hours he spent in there. And he was doing that while we were trying to get all this other stuff done. It's really, you know, an amazing, amazing task. Some concrete repair at, I keep jumping around, but some concrete repair at Hill Roberts and Hyman Fine. Not too exciting there, but here's the good stuff. The after photos. That upper left-hand corner is the Coelho cafeteria. I wasn't sure about that color, but Mr. Furtado was brave enough to select it with, of course, buy-in from Mr. Bowles and the Coelho staff, but it looks fantastic. It matches really nice. And of course, we weren't going to put a new floor in without painting. We're not responsible for the trees. Those were already there and they look great, but we did repaint the ceiling and the walls around the serving lines. So it came out really nice. There's your carpet at Brennan. There's Studley. Those are your bathroom renovations, although that's not a great photo. At Brennan Middle School. Of course, that's Briggs Corner with the new ceiling, new light fixtures, and new carpet. And there's cosmetology with the additional workstations. And last but not least, what looks like a very ugly photo to the upper left is actually some valve replacement that we did at Brennan. Again, Brennan isn't often this quiet for us. It's such a busy building. We took advantage of it and did everything we could. We started the day before school ended and didn't stop until I think 5 days after. We're probably becoming a nuisance at some point, but we had so much that we wanted to get done. So we replaced more than a dozen valves in univents. We had a couple fail on us, and we were worried as we moved into the future if we didn't address them when we had an opportunity to do that, that was going to happen again, and we didn't want to see that happen. So Eric, who's the district's HVAC mechanic, took on what is an incredibly tedious task to replace those valves. You can see that you're replacing all the piping next to it. You're doing that laying on the floor for 3-4 hours, you know, at a time. Not a great condition to work. That's Willett Elementary in the middle. They picked out a really nice carpet. We painted those walls. That upper right-hand corner, if you've ever been to Brennan and Wamsutta, they've got foldable walls in the corner. I'm sure everybody's familiar with these. And they're great. They work a lot like the collaborative spaces here at the high school. But they were wallpapered. And wallpaper sort of, once you get like a little bit of a corner, comes up a little bit, and people sort of have a tendency. So after 30 years, they were showing their age. We went and found a board. We weren't sure how to manage it. We weren't going to re-wallpaper it. We weren't just going to try to rip it off and then paint it, because it was kind of like a, not cardboard, of course, but a cardboard type material. Brandon and Andre, who's the senior custodian at Brennan, went to Home Depot and found this material that looks identical to what was actually installed. It's just a finished board that fit perfectly, and they installed that 2 nights before school opened. They finished. Get it in. So it was just it makes a huge difference. So now when the students are going in, they're leaving what is a freshly painted common space, freshly painted and renovated bathrooms, into freshly carpeted classrooms with, in some cases, brand new walls. And then there's just some of the other custodial work done in the district. I'll finish with, during all of this, Sodexo thought it would be a great idea to surprise us with an audit. So they sent in an order, they gave us a few days' notice and said, hey, we're gonna send in someone from EcoShore. They're gonna go through your safety program, your safety parameters, they're gonna interview some of your employees. It'll be about a half a day. They did exactly that. Total nightmare when we found out about it, like who's in the mood for that in the middle of the summer, especially during all this work. But I'm very happy to say that we scored a perfect 100%. So it went really well. And that is all I have.
Thank you. So seeing the photos and having been in the buildings, I mean, the buildings always look great year-round.
Thank you.
But the end of summer, start of the school year, when everything's been waxed and everything's been touched up, this year was exceptionally better. And I think there's two, so hearing your presentation, there were two points that stuck out to me. One, this is the first summer, it was the busiest summer, but I think this is the first summer that you and your team have felt comfortable enough with this new building, having learned this building, to be out in the other buildings. And I think part of that is, as we were trying to get this building built, one of the concerns we often heard from the community was they can't maintain their other buildings, they haven't maintained the high school, why would we give them a new building? But I think now, seeing how we've always wanted to be able to maintain, but had been limited by that building, I hope this renews faith in the community and in how we're maintaining our schools, and how this building is giving us that flexibility to do so.
The huge difference, and it is night and day, is that we're not doing any reactive maintenance here. I mean, there's that much reactive maintenance. It's all planned, it's all scheduled. It's scheduled months out. We know exactly what we're getting into. We've got the resources and the time to do it. The other building, we never knew what we were getting into. Regardless, it could be, usually it was a Friday afternoon and things got exciting. So you were never able to plan too far out, certainly not to the extent that we were able to use our resources, time, talent, material, in the other schools the way we are now. So absolutely.
And even just cosmetology is a great example of that, where we're in year 4 of this building and we're realizing that we're a little ahead of schedule in enrolling some of our CTE programs. What could the problems become, and how can we prevent them? Mr. Storrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, you sat through this many years now, and I'm always amazed what you guys are able to accomplish. But to piggyback off what Mr. Geddes just said, yeah, back in the day, you would spend at least half of this talking about all the work that you did at the high school.
Yeah.
So the fact that now it's like you just said, it's this, and now you're able to use all that time and all that energy on the other buildings. I don't think the citizens understand just how amazing that is, because they gave us a gift with this building, and we need to be appreciative, very appreciative for what they gave us. But this has enabled you guys to focus where you need to be focusing, while we don't have to spend all that time here at the high school. So it's paying dividends. So again, great job.
Mr. Domenici?
Thank you. And this really does it justice. When I gave my update, I was kind of all over the place because I didn't know where to start with all the work that was done, other than to say, they're going to come in and they're going to show you for themselves. And where I work, you know, some of the work that we do in my company, financial services, you have like your BAU, your business as usual, and your maintenance plans, but then you have enhancements. And when I look at all this, like, sure, there was maintenance work, but there are a lot of enhancements. We're not just maintaining the other 8 buildings, 9 if you count Briggs, we're improving them. And that's a space since I've been on, we really haven't had the opportunity to get into. So, I mean, we had our meeting at Coelho, and we saw firsthand what that cafeteria looks like. It's phenomenal. I would advise anybody to take an opportunity, but it seems like the next one, we need to go to Brennan and just walk the whole building.
It's incredible. It
Yeah.
really is just night and day
And
difference.
in closing, I'll simply say, and I know we mentioned him previously when I gave my update, but Brandon is just what a success story, what a full circle story. This was an electrical graduate from our electrical CTE program, and he's in, you know, an elevated position now within our district, making sure that all these buildings are looking as best as they can. And like, I think that's what we hope for out of our CTE program, to make sure our kids are ready, but then, you know, hopefully getting some of them to come back right here and show us everything they've learned and work on these buildings themselves. So I know he's not here, but, you know, he should be very well congratulated, as is the rest of the team, who basically decided that this work was more important than personal time off in the summer. And I don't know too many people who would do that, who would make that priority. So please thank all of them on
I
our
absolutely
behalf
will.
when,
Thank you.
when we're done here. Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Johnson?
Thank you very much, Mr. Geddes. I think I'm going to end up echoing much of what has already been said. When you opened up your presentation, you said this was one of the busiest summers yet. I thought, oh my goodness, how could that be? Because I know how much time you guys have spent, and like what Mr. Storr said, you know, over half of your time, energy, effort in the past was spent on one building, just to kind of keep that going until we limped along and got this building open. And I'm so happy to hear that you're able to do what you've wanted to do, which was to be proactive. And you gave us so many examples of that in your presentation, not only with cosmetology, but with the, I had written down here about the events at Brennan, knowing like, you know, we could kick this can down the road, but we're here now, and let's be smart about our resources. And so those seemingly small decisions end up being very cost effective for the district, because you're taking care of things now before they become a bigger issue. And just the thoughtfulness that went into your planning regarding the, you know, questioning, is the carpet the best idea, but then going through and making sure you got the warranty, being thoughtful about the water-based paint and solvents, so that Brennan could still be, you know, active with all of their programs during the summer. So, you know, and again, you know, sometimes the custodial staff, the people behind the scenes, really are our unsung heroes. They do so much, and I'm so glad that you were here so that we could really highlight the great work that your staff has done as well. So, thank you.
Mr. Larson?
Well, Aaron.
Oh, Mr. Bennett?
Well, thank you. I think Mr. Larson was first, but that's okay. I just want to emphasize a couple of things that I picked up on. One is, you said, you know, we're gonna paint the carpet, we're gonna fix the carpet before it stains. And that's the kind of thing that it just makes me thrilled, because I grew up in Attleboro in the 80s, and the prevailing attitude was that no one cares about the schools and the schools are falling apart. Now, I know that probably wasn't true, and I'm sure that if you were, like, my father worked in the Attleboro schools in the 80s, and I know that everybody cared about the schools, but the perception was that the schools are falling apart, no one cares about them, no one does preventative maintenance. You know, you see the same stain in the carpet. I'm sure there's stains at the old high school that were there when I went to middle school there in the 80s that are still on the floor, right? And what a massive change in the way that we take care of the schools. This sort of thing represents having the time and having the schools taken care of, just as the libraries are taken care of by skilled, competent professionals, and the curriculum is taken care of by skilled, competent professionals who know their field and understand their body of work. It does me so much good to hear and to be really clear that the facilities are taken care of by similar quality people. And it's clear that you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you know, like I've heard you at the facilities meeting talk about, you know, the particular structure of tile on the roof or the quality of paint on various schools or whatever it is, you know what you're talking about. And when I knock doors, I tell people, like, one of the reasons I ran for school committee is I wanted to know whether the schools are being properly taken care of. And it's a thrill to be going around 2 years later and telling people, I can tell you with certainty that the schools are being properly taken care of. And that this high school, and we've heard it over and over again, you better take care of that high school because we're never building you another one. And if I were not on the school committee, I would be saying the same thing to whoever knocked on my door, right? And it's clear to me that we are living up to our side of that covenant that we made with the voters of Attleboro. When we all raised our own taxes to build the most beautiful facility you could ever imagine, that it's not just about this facility, it's about all the other schools and all the other parts of our physical plant that are being appropriately taken care of. And that's why I think it's a success story. And that's why I'm glad you got to come here tonight, so that, you know, everyone who's watching and everyone who refers to this later or whatever will be able to see exactly the kind of care and attention that's put into maintaining these buildings. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Larson?
I'm going to agree with everything that's been said, but I think one of the things that really sticks out to me watching your team and the custodial team work together, I mean, because they work great together, and I mean, they are truly unsung heroes, I agree. But I think the fact that we are now in a position, we are working a plan. We aren't just reacting, as Mr. Furtado said, on Friday afternoon, this section of A building blew out again. Or, you know, so I mean, we're actually, there is a plan for all 10 of the buildings that we're using. The plan is being worked, and so that you can head off all the surprises before they happen. And so working a plan and working the preventive side of it is just such a great place to be in, instead of reacting and getting messages over the weekend and, ooh, we're going to delay on Monday because guess what? X, Y, Z. So to be in this situation, and, you know, it's our job to take care of the buildings. Ironically, it's our job, and then we give our job to you. So thank you for taking care of our job. Because it's you and all of your crews that get all this done. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, thank you again, and thank you to Mr. Domenici for bringing this following the last infrastructure and facilities subcommittee to say, like, we need to highlight all of this work. So, at the risk of sounding ungrateful, what are you guys doing next? I know you mentioned, like, you're done on the second floor of Wamsutta. Next summer, the plan is first floor.
Yes.
You've taken care of Brendan and Willett to the best of your ability so far, so.
So we're actually, we try to get a jump on the summer, and we generally start that in the spring. So we've already started planning some spring, some spring projects at Hyman Fine. We're going to do some work on the building exterior there. We've done some concrete repair this past summer. So the plan this spring will be, we're going to paint the exterior ceiling. We're going to do some some additional concrete repair. We'll be doing that this summer. We've also got some more painting planned over winter break that we'll be doing. And if all goes as planned, we plan on actually doing some more carpet over winter break in areas where, if, you know, we're not going to, more common space, so that we're not going to disrupt classrooms. We won't have the time to empty out entire classroom spaces, but we'll certainly be having enough time to do some common spaces. So that'll be our plan. So we're actually going to start our summer projects this winter, and it'll be carpets and some painting in the spring.
And Mr. Furtado, you've already started the process of preparing for the capital improvements plan. Is there anything new that you think, I know Quello, a lot of work there is going to be included in that, but
So we, from what you had from last year, we added some work here in the parking lot. So we never put a finish coat on any of the parking areas on the building. So that's on there. And then dealing with Brennan Wamsutta parking lots as well, which hasn't been addressed at all. The one thing we didn't mention was we're going out, kind of February-ish to do that other parking lot work, Thatcher, Studley, Hyman Fine, to execute that at the beginning of the spring. So a lot of asphalt work was added to the capital improvement plan. But other than that, it's kind of same old, same old. That we have a series of big ticket items. We have the roofs at Coelho and Thatcher. We have the track and football field stuff. And we have the cooling systems at Coelho and Brennan that are, 60% of the dollars on the list.
any other questions or comments, Mr. Frappier?
Yes, when you mentioned the parking at Thatcher, is this the expansion we've been kicking around for years too? Okay, awesome,
It's about 30 spaces.
excellent, thank you.
And the plan was for that to have happened this summer, but the cooling issue prevented that.
Yeah, that explosion you heard.
Any other questions or comments? Excellent. Thank you both very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is the Student Advisory Council update, and for that, I will turn it over to Ms. Olson.
Everyone, thank you again for that lovely presentation. We really do appreciate all the work you do. So to start off, for athletics, the fall sports are about over with a few, a few teams going to the playoffs, including volleyball. They're traveling to Brookline today for the round of 16. And the field hockey team and girls and boys soccer will also play in this week's round of 16. And arts, which is the real special thing coming up, our marching band is the Regional 3A U.S. Band State Champions for all of Massachusetts, which I think is just amazing. Just being there, the energy was so exciting. I think just seeing the program evolve so much, because when I was a freshman, I think there was 35 people in the program, and now it's grown to, we're around 60, and we didn't even compete freshman year. It was just exciting to go to a competition in general, but now to just see the program grow enough that we're state champions now is just the most rewarding thing ever. And we really do act like it. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. We really put on a great performance, and I'm just so proud of everything that we've done. And also the music department will be holding their winter concert on December 18th in the Bray. We've got some very good selections coming up from Home Alone and How to Train Your Dragon, and those songs are coming up really good, which is really nice. And the music department is also holding a BJ's Brewhouse fundraiser on December 17th. So if you want to go support the music department, you can dine in or order takeout, and some of the proceeds will go to us. And then in terms of student life, the homecoming theme has been announced, which is Old Hollywood. And it will be held on November 21st from 6 to 9 p.m. at AHS. And the sophomore class has been planning the entire event. So they're doing an awesome job about that. And Powder Puff practices are starting next Sunday for juniors and seniors. And the game is in 2 weeks on the 13th. And the BPAC held their Krispy Kreme fundraiser on Thursday, and lots of students and parents supported the fundraiser. I know personally, after dismissal, I got some, and then in the next 15 minutes, they were all gone. So everyone does love their donuts. And the National Honor Society has been in full swing. We've really started to get things going. We're beginning to plan our Polar Plunge and our Senior Citizens Prom event. And then in terms of student government, the Student Council recently hosted their candidates forum, which was a great success. There's been a few people who've reached out to me and said that it's just been awesome, and they really like the perspective that they got from the event. And now we're starting to kick up fundraising in high gear, as our winter and spring conferences are going to be here before we know it. So yeah, and we just need to cover stuff for the buses. So that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Olson. Mr. Frappier?
What was the marching band, what they wanted, all state and what?
In Regional 3A. So there's different divisions in U.S. bands. but for our region, we won.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions? Just congratulations again to you and the student council for a fantastic candidates forum. Very impressive. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our Monday, October 20th meeting. Minutes were provided with the packet. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments, edits, updates to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the superintendent's report, and for that, I will turn it over to Mr. Sawyer.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to start by just expressing that I share the committee's appreciation for the work that was done this summer. We are very fortunate as a district to have such talented and dedicated custodial and maintenance staff. They do fantastic work, and of course, it all starts with the strong leadership that we saw on display this evening. And I just wanted to add that what shouldn't be lost in this discussion is that, yes, it's nice to have nice things, and we all want to take pride in our schools, and I certainly believe in that. But ultimately, that work is about teaching and learning, about creating learning environments in which students and faculty are safe and not distracted by the conditions so that they can do the good work that needs to be done there. And many of the projects, especially around the carpeting and the prioritization of what carpets we did first, was done in conjunction with the union, who had raised concerns about the carpets in certain areas around the district, and we worked with them to identify those areas and make sure that they were the first ones to be taken care of. We share the concern about old carpets and the effect that they might have. If you've ever tried to teach children in a classroom in which some of them are sitting on top of a rip in the carpet that's been taped over with duct tape, good luck not having them be distracted by wanting to peel up that tape. So, there's a lot that goes into what we're talking about, but the impact ultimately is about helping our educators do their best work by putting them in the best possible environment, and this work certainly supports that. Moving on, November, so good time to circle back and report on what we submitted to the state. October is an important reporting period, and as a result of the completion of those reports, we have realized that enrollment in the district, the enrollment that will be used from the October report that feeds the calculation by the state for the foundation budget, is down by 77 students. That obviously has a budgetary impact, not in the right direction from our perspective, and so that's something that we're going to be keeping our eyes on and looking for other things that are in fluctuation at this time of year, but wanted to inform the committee that we know that that's the case, and we know that we're going to have to start grappling with the implications of that. Just to put in perspective, though, 77 students is less than 1.5%. That is well within the normal fluctuation. District of this size, kids come, they go. Some years are up, some years are down. Quite frankly, the number is more representative of the traditional level that we're at. Last year's number was the unusual increase, and we see that this number is just sort of a return to what we would normally expect. So in this moment, we don't see it as a sign of any sort of trend that would concern us, but obviously, you need another year to know whether you have a problem of that sort, but there's no reason to believe that's the case. But we do know that that's going to have a bit of a pinch on us budgetarily as our funding is driven by how many students we have. So wanted to make the committee aware that that is clear to us and something that we're beginning our planning on. The next step in the budgetary process, as you know, is we will be developing our estimated level service number and delivering that in a presentation in December.
So, a much larger decrease than I expected, but how much of that, I know you said there are no alarming trends in there, but how much of that is just the result of us having such a huge high school graduation class compared to?
That's definitely a piece of it. From our perspective, it's that. It's also, there's certainly been a chilling effect on the number of immigrant students that are enrolling in the Attleboro Public Schools as part of a national trend. So that has certainly had an impact. But honestly, you don't really look at the numbers and see that there's a giant hole in any one place. You know, when you spread 77 kids across, 13 grades, it's not much here or there. And it's more like that than a real pocket. But certainly last year's graduating class compared to the incoming freshman class is significant difference and part of the story.
Mr. Storrs?
I think it's important to note, so, I mean, we're talking 12,000 per student, what's the numbers?
It's closer to 18 now.
So we're talking 1.5 million?
Yeah, something like that.
Right. I think it's important to put that out there. I mean, a 77 student drop equates to, 1.5 million, give or take,
Yep.
So that's obviously a concern, something we have to plan for and think about, so just wanted to put that out.
Knowing
there.
the full impact and what they do with Chapter 70 funding to begin with, makes it a real hard thing to overcommit to an estimate. But yeah, it's a significant number, which is why
Yeah, and I
bringing it
appreciate
to your
that.
attention.
Mr. Bennett?
So the freshman class is small, largely, right? What about the sophomore class? Like, is there a trend of decreasing enrollment?
No, last time I looked, the sophomore and junior classes are relatively similar in size. They're, I have this right, I think those are the two, and then the senior class is a little bit larger as, you actually would think not that, so maybe I have that mixed up. But the freshman class is the smallest, that I can say definitively, and the other three are pretty close in size. I mean, in a normal circumstance, the freshman class is the largest, and it goes down a little bit every year, is what the historical trend has been, and we're a little bit upside down on that.
So do you anticipate that this freshman class will decrease in size as they progress through the grades?
That's the normal trend,
Right.
but only marginally. So that's already baked into evening out over time. So it in and of itself doesn't result in a reduction. It's much more, as Mr. Guy said, the idea that this freshman class is noticeably smaller than last year's senior class.
So if it's a demographic trend, then it shouldn't be a surprise. But this was a surprise. So there's not a demographic trend. Like the 8th grade class was probably small. Last year's 8th grade class was probably small, right? What I'm hoping is that if you do these projections, the amount of kids in every grade all the way through, you might be able to come up with an understanding of what the enrollment trend is going to look like down the road. And if it's going to continue to be a problem, then we'll need
In the transition from 8th to 9th grade, though, there's a bunch of factors that make it not just a simple, like, you know what last year's number is, so you know what next year's number is. After 8th grade,
Right,
certain
kids go to
students go
Fee
off
In
to
and
private
whatever.
school. And then, what we've been experiencing is that a significant number of people have been moving to Attleboro to be able to enjoy Attleboro High School. Attleboro High School as a whole is still well above the number that it was designed for. So we're still grappling with more students than the school can comfortably handle, which, when we talk about things like lunch lines, right? When you have almost 100 kids more per lunch, which is what the current number results in, that's part of the explanation for why the situation is the way it is there. So overall, we're still up, but, those two, the last year's outgoing class and this year's incoming class, there happens to be more of a delta than normal.
Are we 77 kids down just in the high school or across the whole district?
Across the whole
Oh,
district.
and it's fairly even from K all the way through 12. All right, so there's no great cliff to look for. I only think about it because in higher ed, we're constantly sweating the next freshman class. Thank you.
We've been hearing about the enrollment cliff for years.
Really?
So, any other questions related to enrollment? Thank you.
And then my only other thing this evening is, as I previewed for the committee in my update on Friday, the House, Massachusetts State House, last week passed a literacy bill that they have sent to the Senate for consideration. I just, wanted to speak a little bit about it so that get a couple things on the record here. First of all, I certainly understand the concern on the part of our state leaders The literacy crisis, I think, is very real, and I think they are right to be concerned about it. When you look at any of the metrics around literacy, both here in the Commonwealth or nationally or even internationally, there's real reason to worry about what the data is telling us. And to be clear, we wear a lot of hats as a school district. We have a lot of concerns. We very intentionally along the way, adopted a philosophy of worrying about the whole child and not just slavishly chasing achievement scores at the expense of other concerns. And there's a lot that goes into, worrying about our kids. They're very complicated, developing individuals who present needs in a lot of different ways. And we're here to try our best to meet all of them because in the end, it's the best way to service their academic concerns as well, which ultimately is what the mission is. But that's all to say is that as much as we wear a lot of hats, none of them is more important than teaching kids how to read. Reading, I think, in my opinion, is the most important thing we do. The research on it is clear-cut. Not everyone who reads is a good person. Not everyone who doesn't read is a bad person. But reading makes everyone a better person. And reading is closely tied to improved thinking and communicating. So when we help kids to be better readers, we help them in ways that will pay dividends their entire lives. And so there's really nothing more important than we can put our effort into than improving our students' reading. So for all these reasons, I agree with the concern. And to be clear, we have no objection to the legislation as passed. From our perspective, and haven't dived in too carefully, but from a casual reading of it, we believe that APS is already compliant with what the law would require of us. We're already doing it, so no objections here in terms of what they're asking for. That said, as has been the case in a couple other things that have come up like this along the way, while we don't object to the content, we're not fans of the approach. While we agree with the content of the law, a lot of the rhetoric we hear around the science of reading smells a little bit like many educational fads, and we worry that it promotes thinking that somehow it's a panacea, that if you just do this one thing, that's going to fix everything. From our perspective, teaching reading is a complicated endeavor, and there's no one simple solution. Even if all the things that law calls for are things we agree with, we think it's an oversimplification to say that that's the whole solution right there. And we're concerned that that oversimplification sometimes leads to bad decision making. And then more broadly, and I don't mean to be political here, but regulations don't teach reading. And anytime we try to improve outcomes by simply making more rules, I worry about how that all plays downstream as someone who has to follow the rules that people wrote in some past time that were well-intended that get in the way of good decision-making now. That all said, if somehow our leaders believe that this law is necessary, I just want the committee and our community to know that it won't be a problem for us here. That said, though, I do think this initiative presents a solution that misidentifies the actual problem. If you read between the lines, and maybe I'm not being fair, but this is how it seems to me, is that if you think that you need to regulate how we teach reading, I think you're suggesting that our literacy crisis, which I agree is real, is caused by people not teaching reading right. And that way we'll regulate it to make them teach it right. And here to say that I do not agree with that basic assumption. Not to say that even in this district is reading taught perfectly. There's always room for improvement. And I'm sure that there are districts who have tried harebrained things. You know, there's no accounting for taste. But my experience in this role is that the majority of districts are much like Attleboro and following what the science says is best practices. I don't think that at the root of this problem is widespread bad teaching or incorrect teaching of reading. And, you know, a lot of the rhetoric also includes commentary about the pandemic and the learning losses that occurred there, which are absolutely a real thing. There's no doubt that the interruption in learning that was, you know, caused by pandemic policies have resulted in circumstances that we're still grappling with. I've said on many occasions, I will be gone, and the impact will still be felt for years to come. So that's a very real thing, but again, I don't think that's actually the cause of the problem. I think it took a problem that already was growing and made it worse. So, you know, what exactly is to blame for this? Well, I can't say that I know. I'm here to do our best to grapple with these challenges, regardless of what the causes are. You know, a certain level doesn't matter. But just as someone who's on the front line of the issue, I want to suggest that the timing between the decline in scores, again, not locally, not statewide, not even nationally, but internationally, that it coincides so neatly with the ubiquity of smartphones might be something that we all need to consider. And the growing research that suggests that all of our cognitive abilities are hampered by our addiction to our phones, which I am no better than anyone else, so don't think that I'm taking some sort of high ground, is something I think we have to be concerned about, and especially the impact on children that is we're just beginning to understand and worry about might really be at the heart of what this problem is. And I shared an essay with the committee as part of my preview. For anyone at home, it's by James Marriott. It's called The Dawn of the Post-Literate Society. I think there are social forces at work that much better explain our literacy crisis. And if we're really going to fix it, I think we have to grapple with the deeper problem rather than put a rhetorical Band-Aid on the whole thing, which is the commentary I wanted to share with the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Any questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Larson?
I think a couple of the things that you mentioned have always struck a chord with me. I think people don't realize everything that the schools try to do for the students, that for better, for worse, it's in our best interest to do all that. But the way education was set up, it was never designed to do all of that. It was, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, and down that whole line. But I think with the challenges that students show up to, that all the teachers and the staff all have to take on as challenges in order to teach every child that shows up, and all the individuality of all of them. And my greatest fear is that a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing up on Beacon Hill are going to come up with the one shoe that fits all to all the different possibilities that exist in the classrooms that the teachers are managing. I don't see it happening. I mean, they're going to do something. We know that's for sure, because they got a mandate to do something. But my biggest concern when that happened was they're going to do something and they could make it worse somehow, because they're not going to take into account everything that is being dealt with that, for better for worse, wasn't designed to be dealt with, but is being dealt with, because it's in our best interest to help students with all the different parts of their life, and not just the 6.5 hours that we have them, and not then turn around and not worry about the other 18. Because you know, we're in a situation now where we have to take care of everybody and for the whole day, and that's a huge challenge, because that's not what education was originally designed to do. And so I think those comments of yours are very fitting.
Any other questions or comments? I think I agree with the as someone who is not a leisure reader by any, between the amount of leisure reading I do and the amount of leisure reading my wife and one of my daughters does, somewhere, you combine us all, you get an average reader. But I think, yes, that there is a convenient correlation between the use of smartphones, but I think at that same time was also the significant rise of social media and the opportunity to misinform. And so to piggyback off of what Mr. Larson said, on top of all of the things that school districts now need to do, what was, I think, for us as students, common sourced, accepted knowledge is compounded by needing to verify the sources and needing to put more emphasis on teaching students how to critically think and determine their own truth and their own interpretations of the information that they're receiving. And so I think there's some impact there as well. But a little bit, Mr. Storrs?
So one thing, I think I know the answer, but I just want to verify. So when the state looks at literacy, what are they using to determine, whether or not a student has the skills that they're supposed to have or not?
MCAS.
MCAS, 10th grade MCAS
Well,
is probably a major component of that, being that used to be the graduation requirement. That's
I wouldn't isolate 10th grade in their assessment of.
I'm sure they're using all of them, third,
they're
fourth,
using-
and so on. But the reason I say 10th grade is because that's the last one. And so very often, that's the determination, or at least it used to be the determination, of whether or not a student is ready to graduate, which is, I always thought that was funny, that a 10th grade assessment ultimately determines graduation readiness. I always thought that was ironic,
It's not even, it's worse than that, because the test was actually testing at an 8th grade standard, so.
Right. So, right, exactly. So the point being that I think we saw it in our results, and from the discussion that we had at curriculum, we know that the question that was passed to do away with the MCAS graduation requirement has affected, or it sure appears to have affected results, maybe not necessarily in Attleboro, but across the Commonwealth in a negative way. We saw across the board, across the Commonwealth, the 10th grade scores, including reading scores, going in the wrong direction. And the obvious, understanding of what could be a cause of that is the fact that it's no longer a requirement to graduate, so the importance of it, unfortunately, is affected, is a good way to say it.
Yeah, so a couple things. One, while MCAS is the major one, it's not the only one.
Sure.
I think the NAEP is another way that the state measures its progress, and that's a test that a selected group of students statewide take. We've administered the NAEP, every couple years. A school, gets the good news that they have to administer it. So,
And
that's
that's
a cross
spotted,
section,
right?
but that test is never counted for anything, and yet they use those results. And, I would remind us that outside of 10th grade, the MCAS doesn't really count for, never did, and yet students largely accepted that this is what they did. And I don't think we saw the drop in scores in our other grades that we did like we did in 10th grade. And so, psychologically, I don't mean to read too much into the minds of adolescents, but I'm going to do it anyways. I think you had a group of students who thought that by virtue of that vote meant they didn't have to take the test anymore. And then someone had to, explain them the bad news. No, you do have to take it, it just doesn't count. It's not that hard to imagine that perhaps some students said, well, I'm not going to take this seriously because I feel like I've been robbed of my not having to take it. I think in time, the psychology around that will pass. And just like in the other grades, just like with the NAEP, here's a test. Yeah, you don't have to pass it to graduate, but, we're telling you it's important, so please take it. For most students, that's going to, I think, carry the day. And I think we'll bounce back a little bit from, I think, last year's reaction.
I hope you're right. I am concerned about the future, that sentiment might continue. And I do appreciate that Attleboro continues to put, for the students, gets them to understand that there is value in what they're doing, in taking that, because it is a tool for you, the administration, and for us to determine what is working and what is not working. So I don't want to ever see that diminished.
Absolutely. And, while we have maintained all along that we don't think we should, judge students by how they do on one assessment, and therefore have pushed back on some of the ways that we use MCAS data to jump to larger conclusions. But we've always, I have always argued that it's a test that our students should pass. When I look at it, I say, if you're going to get a diploma, you should be able to pass this test. And helping students to understand that and, want to do their best so that they can demonstrate that they do measure up is something that I don't think hurts children.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Storrs. Any other questions? Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Next item on the agenda is our consent items. I'll take all as one motion unless anyone has any concerns. Seeing none, a motion to accept a donation in the amount of $505 from the Olivia Knighton Foundation to the girls soccer program at Attleboro High School. Motion to accept a contractual obligation in the amount of $75.75 from Planet Aid as broken down in the check receipt dated October 16th, 2025. Motion to accept a contractual obligation in the amount of $33.30 from Bay State Textiles to Hill Roberts Elementary School. Motion to accept a contractual obligation in the amount of $51.60 from Bay State Textiles to Hill Roberts Elementary School. And motion to send to the Municipal Council for approval prior year invoices totaling $5,600 as described in the memo from Brittany Perella dated October 23rd, 2025.
Moved.
Was there a sec? Sorry. Thank you. Any questions, comments? There was a poorly timed cough. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is open forum. This is the time when members of the public may address the school committee. Open forum is not a time for the committee members to engage in dialogue with members of the public. Guidelines for open forum are available to you. Please know that we are interested in what you have to say, but cannot respond without background information on your issue. Each open forum participant will be given 3 minutes to address the committee. Is there anyone that would like to address the committee as part of public open forum? Please come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Hello. Joey Ford, 44 Smith Street. It's a good day. Before I begin, I just want to speak first to the people who are at the heart of this community, our teachers, paras, specialists, therapists, bus drivers, cafeteria staff, custodians, nurses, office staff, and of course the crossing guards. I love you, whether you've agreed with my approach to advocacy or not, because love to me is a commitment to children, to truth, and to the people who show up for them every single day. I am part of this community, part of this civic body, entrusted with protecting and uplifting our kids. And because I care, honesty is a service, not a threat. Leadership isn't measured when things are easy. It is revealed when values are tested. Tonight, I am grading leadership based on participation, communication, independence, and courage during difficult moments. Aaron Bennett, you get an A-. Aaron starts at a B for consistent participation, thoughtful questions, and communication when others were silent. With only 2 years in and strong instincts, he earns an A- trajectory. I encourage him to continue trusting his instinct. William Larson, you get a B-. Contributes logically, works hard behind the scenes, needs tougher public questioning and stronger communication during critical moments. You get a B-. Lynn Porto, you get a B. Involved in CPAC, that matters. More communication and more assertive questioning would strengthen her role. Gets a B. Shannon Johnson, B-. Regular, meaningful participation has raised parent concerns. Response consistency needs improvement, which gives the B-. Chris Frappier, you get a C. Active in subcommittees, back-end work acknowledged, but almost no public questioning and no parent communication. Needs visible engagement beyond infrastructure. C. Jim Storrs, you get a C+. Positive presence, ask questions, but rarely the hard ones. No communication during crisis. C+. Scott Dominici, C+. Participates in respectful in person, but not responsive by email during key moments. Needs stronger assertiveness. C+. Rob Geddes, C+. begins at B for visible participation representing parents at times. But with extensive experience in education and governance comes higher expectations. Governance requires independence from the system it oversees. Experience demands courage, not alignment by default. C+. Diane Sawyer, I'm sorry, but this is an F. Fails to attend consistently, does not meaningfully participate, ask questions, or communicate with families. Directs parents to email and then refuses to substantially answer questions and has engaged in unnecessary instigation publicly. If a lower grade existed, she would have earned it. F. Leadership is not about personality, it's about showing up, speaking up, and serving publicly during difficult moments. These grades reflect stewardship, accountability, and presence when families and children needed it most. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Is there anyone else that would like to address the committee as part of open forum? Seeing none, I will close open forum. Upcoming important dates to remember, and this will vary slightly from what's on the printed agenda. But as a reminder, tomorrow, Tuesday, November 4th, schools are closed for professional development during the municipal election. This Wednesday, November 5th, Finance and Budget Subcommittee meeting will take place here in the Zito Conference Room at 6:30 p.m. On Thursday, this Thursday, November 6th, it's an early release for afternoon and student conferences at the elementary school level, and there is no school for the ELC only. There was a Policy and Personnel Subcommittee meeting scheduled for November 10th that has been rescheduled to November 24th. Next Tuesday, November 11th, is Veterans Day, and the schools will be closed to honor the holiday. And then our next full committee meeting is November 17th here in the Zito Room at 6:30. And just in advance notice, on Tuesday, November 18th, ACEPAC will be having its next meeting here in the Zito Conference Room at 6:30. Any other updates or new business from anyone on the committee? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you and have a great night.